Hey guys, Captain Dylan Hubbard here at Hubbard's Marina with our second try here during the live stream show. Sorry for that little bit of a stutter step at the beginning, but we're live again and we're excited for our live stream show. Hopefully you are too. We've got the live stream show kicking off and we've got so much to talk about, so much to do, and so much to go over tonight. And it looks like things are working, so that's always nice. We've got lots to review and lots to give away. Are you ready to win some free stuff? We've got lots of free stuff to give away tonight. We've got our 5-hour half day for 2 guests, 10-hour all day for 2 guests, 39-hour for 1, and that Hubbard's Marina swag pack. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of our Sunday night live stream show every Sunday night right here on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook. Now we're streaming to TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Trovo, Twitch. We're all over the place across multiple different platforms. So you want a chance to win some free stuff tonight, guys? This is how you do it. You hop on over to the Hubbard's Marina Facebook page. You like the live video. You comment on the live video. Tell us where you're watching from. You're entered for a chance to win. Then you have to watch live in order to try to get a chance to win, because at random times throughout the show, we're going to pop up the name generator. You'll see names go across the screen. We'll pick one lucky viewer. You've got 5 minutes or less to claim that free trip. So again, in order to enter for a chance to win, you have to comment once on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook stream and like the stream for us. Then you have to watch live, because you can watch live on Trovo, on TikTok, on Twitter, on YouTube. It doesn't matter where you watch, but you have to comment once on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook stream. Then when your name pops up, if your name pops up, you got 5 minutes or less to text the phone number on the screen, your full home address. Want to make sure we give a shout out to our friends over at Gator Gyms Tackle, 3301 Pinellas Point Drive South in St. Petersburg. If you haven't gotten a chance to stop by and see our friends at Gator Gyms, make sure you do so. And then also want to make sure we give a shout out to all the supporters out there on Facebook who help fuel the show and make this possible. If you haven't checked out our supporters group, it's only $4.99 a month for an entry into that supporters group. You get private access to our private supporters group, and it's a lot of fun, a little behind the scenes. Plus we do a supporters after show every week that gives you a chance to win some more information after the show. So definitely check out our supporters group. Also want to make sure we give a shout out to all those sending stars on Facebook. We had Angel Perez with a big 1,000 stars, Noah Smith with 200, Robert Riggs, Barry Long, Lance Hall with a big 1,200. Happy Father's Day, Lance, and everybody else watching. Nick Neves, appreciate those 1,000 stars, buddy. Hopefully everybody's doing well tonight. Appreciate you tuning in and hanging out on this Father's Day Sunday. Definitely excited for a good show tonight. We're excited. We're finally able to stream live on TikTok. Is Instagram working, Josh? Instagram is working too, right? Nice. Nice. We're streaming live all over the place. So thanks for tuning in, y'all. And now it's time to get into some photos, show you guys what we've been catching. We're going to start inshore, show you guys what we're seeing inshore. Then we're going to move near shore and offshore and talk a little bit about that. Definitely seeing some nice flounder around. They're kind of spotty. Actually, that's kind of, the pun is not intended there. They are spotty fish in general, color pattern-wise, but spotty as in spotty across the area. We're seeing a nice number of redfish as well. Redfish definitely tending to hang out on those oyster bars, on those grass flats. They're definitely trying to follow the mullet. You're finding the mullet, you're finding the birds, you're finding the redfish. Also, they're tending to gravitate towards those shaded areas, those areas where they can get a little bit of a cooler water. So those potholes, those holes, those mangrove shorelines, those dock lines starting to become a hotbed for those redfish. A lot of snook around the passes right now, bridge lights and dock lights at night, early morning hours out on the flats. The beaches holding a ton of snook. Dock lights, bridge lights, great action. Tarpon throughout our area, bigger tarpon at the mouth of the bay, around the passes and bridges and on the beaches, smaller tarpon in the upper and back bay areas. Some good trout action on the edges in those potholes, those deeper flats, definitely holding some trout. Despite warm conditions, we've seen a pretty decent trout bite. Now the water temperatures have dipped down a little bit. We had a lot of rain, a lot of cloud cover. That's definitely helped water temperatures start to go much lower. So we're excited about that as well. Now we're going to hop over to near shore and offshore and show you guys what we're catching out there. Definitely some decent mangrove snapper action near shore. We're seeing some pretty good mangrove snapper even on the 10-hour trip. Out a little deeper, seeing some really nice mangrove snapper off in the offshore waters. But as you can see here, this is 10-hour all-day mangrove snapper, 10-hour all-day red grouper. Definitely some good opportunities near shore for some good quality catch. There's another solid red grouper, and plenty of kids out there enjoying the water, and plenty of lady anglers tearing them up as well. And Captain Pete on the hub on the private charters catching some nice red grouper as well. Some solid red grouper action all the way around. We've got a few more days here, about 2 more weeks to get these red grouper before they close. Remember, these red grouper close at the end of June. They remain closed for the rest of 2024. Will reopen January 1st. 2025. So you got 2 more weeks to get your red grouper. These red snapper, we're seeing these occasionally on the 10-hour, but really starting to target them. If you want to target red snapper, you really got to do a 12-hour extreme, 39-hour, 44-hour. We do see a handful here and there on the 10-hour, but not a ton. The red snapper are going to be open through end of day, August 27th. So we've got lots of opportunities, lots of days left to target these red snapper and catch these red snapper. We're seeing them on the hub. We're seeing them on the Flying Hub 2. We're seeing them on those 12-hour extreme trips, on those 39-hour trips. Great opportunities to get plentiful red snapper action for sure. It is a good time to get out there. Plus, the pelagics have been pretty darn notable lately. We've seen some really good cobia. We've seen a handful of sailfish. We've seen mahi-mahi. We've seen wahoo. We've seen even a blackfin tuna or 2. So a lot of pelagic action right now. The gags are coming up. We're having to catch and release some nice gag grouper. Still fun to catch, but we got to get them back in the water quickly on the descending devices. And we've been doing pretty good, trying to do the best we can to save as many of them so we can come back and get them September 1st. When they reopen, gags will be open September 1st for a week or 2. Definitely recommend booking now because that season is going to be short and it's going to fill up quickly. You can see in John Boy's hand there a scamp grouper and a nice red grouper. That scamp grouper is actually bigger than the red grouper, and we've been seeing some really, really solid scamp grouper for sure. It is a good time to get out there and catch you a nice solid scamp. On the 12-hour extreme, 39-hour, 44-hour, some solid scamp grouper action for sure. Red grouper all the way around. Some good opportunities on some great red grouper. Here's Carrie and Scott Carty showing off Carrie's big old red grouper. She got a solid red grouper, solid mangrove, and solid red snapper on her last 39-hour trip. So she crushed it, showed all the guys how to fish for sure. And we have discovered John Boy flexes in every photo now, guys. So if you see a photo of John Boy, subtle flex. Nice red snapper all the way around. Walter Barr with a solid fish there. He's got a couple really nice red snapper pictures in these photos. So good time to get out there for sure. As you can see from the photos, that's just from the past few days, past week basically. So good opportunities really to go capitalize on these fish. This coming week, we do have a little bit of weather we're going to get into, so we're going to talk a little bit about the weather and go over that too. But first, before we get into the weather, let's do our first giveaway of the night. We'll do, we've got a 5-hour half day for 2 to give away, a 10-hour all day for 2 to give away, a 39-hour trip for 1 to give away, and that Hubbard's Marina swag pack. Let's kick it off with the swag pack tonight. We never do that. So let's do the swag pack first. Hubbard's Marina swag pack winner is Richard Vandegrift. Congratulations, Richard. fishing with us at the end of October, just won himself a Hubbard's Marina swag pack. Congratulations, Richard. You got 5 minutes or less to claim that swag pack by texting us the phone number on the screen, your full home address, and don't forget your t-shirt size. That way we can get the t-shirt and the swag pack mailed out to your home. With that, let's get into some of the weather here and talk a little bit about what's going on now weather-wise, and then we'll get into your questions. Remember, if you have a question you want answered live during the show, your comments are great, but they go by really fast. We're streaming to TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, all these different places, so we can't see all of your comments. So if you want a question answered live during the show, you do have to text it to that phone number on the screen. With that, let's pop on over to the Hubbard's Marina website. We're going to click at the top of the Hubbard's Marina website, click Fishing Trips. This is hubbardsmarina.com. Click Fishing Trips. Second one down is Weather Links. That's our Weather Links page. We're going to start in our 5 and 10 hour wind finder forecast area. We're going to look at the wind finder forecast. You can see today was beautiful. Tomorrow, wind is going to start picking up out of the east. We got a little bit of a high pressure kicking in. Only about 2.5 foot, so not terrible, but it is going to be breezy, a little overcast. Tuesday, the wind stays pretty consistent. Seas have a chance to catch up. It's going to get a little bit more than 3 foot. Then wind stays high. Wednesday stays about 3.5 foot. And finally starts to relent Thursday. Seas start to calm down. Friday's looking pretty decent. Saturday, Sunday looking pretty decent. So nothing real concerning here through the weekend, and some good opportunities here. So definitely going to be a little breezy through a majority of the work week, but going to be calming down hopefully this weekend. Now, the big question will be is, does that high pressure hang around and keep that tropical development off of us, or does it, unfortunately, back off a little bit? And if that high pressure backs off a little bit, it's going to open the door for some tropical movement in our area. Do we have Cat Mike on the line? I think we do.
What up, dude?
What's going on? How are you, Cat Mike?
I'm good. Happy Father's Day, my friend.
Happy Father's Day to you as well, buddy. And thanks for joining us tonight.
You bet. You bet. Wouldn't, or at least I try not to miss it.
No,
almost said I wouldn't miss it, but I would. But yeah.
Not planning misses. Yeah. I hear you. So, how's the inshore bite going? How's the inshore side of things? I know water temperatures have changed significantly.
Yes, the water temps came down a little bit with the rain. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But, we'll take what we can get.
Okay.
And the bite was good. I mean, we had lots of snook, lots of redfish still, pretty active. The bait was pretty easy, which is always a blessing. So, coming up on the full moon, tarpon bite should pick up. That evening hill tide should be good with the outgoing of the full moon rocking and rolling. So, I'm looking forward to the week, although, we don't know exactly what we're going to get here with the weather. Last weekend was kind of the same thing. We were thinking it was going to be pretty much a wash, and then we didn't get quite the weather that they were telling us we were going to get. So, it's one of those deals where you're just,
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, you're right. You're like, well, you know what? Let me get up early, 4:30 in the morning, go to the marina, see what the weather's really doing, and then I'll call you.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell you whether or not you should come. It makes it a little difficult on us, but it is what it is. I mean, we're blessed because the fishing's good. There's still a lot of trout around. There's some really fun bites too. Mackerel and bluefish and small sharks and silver trout and speckled trout. Yeah, there's a lot of action spots, which are good if you're taking kids fishing. It's summertime, the kids are out of school, so there's just a lot to do out there right now. It's pretty good time of the year. June's always been one of my favorite months.
Lots to do on the water for sure. So many different fish. And it's crazy to me the sheep's head bite has been so prolific. I was down at Don's Dock today, and the dock structures are just loaded still with sheep's head. I mean, it looks like it's still February. It's pretty crazy.
Is it a bunch of little males?
No. Studs.
Really?
Like,
really?
Studs.
That's great.
I'm a little confused by that, but it's definitely cool to see. And then on top of that, big mangroves too. So you'll throw a net full of dead shrimp in, and you've got some pretty serious, like 1 to 3 pound mangrove snappers sometimes, like some solid 15-inch mangroves. And then you see some real studs mixed in there, and then big sheep's head, like 16, 17-inch sheep's head, like things you'd be in the water with a Hawaiian sling, and you giggle a little bit to yourself, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, and you know, that's I mean, that's a good sign, you know, as June to me, and I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or what the deal is, but it sure seems a little hotter than we've had in the past.
You are getting older.
You know, probably that's very true. But, you know, as you roll into July and August, we especially the charter captains, you know, we lean on that snapper bite sometimes because a lot of the shallow water bites get tough, even on the beach. You know, the snook get a little finicky. They go to spawn and can get a little tougher to catch. I mean, you know, you might go from catching 15 or 20 snook a morning to, you know, 4 or 5, 6 snook a morning, and then you got to have something to fill that time. And the snapper bite is usually a savior. So it's really good to hear that we're seeing, and I've heard it from some other guys around the bay, up the bay as well, that they're already seeing some pretty good numbers of big snapper. So
that's awesome.
You know, that's a real blessing. No, there's no doubt. And we already have some fry bait around. So
that's crazy.
I don't think we've had a major fry hatch yet, but I think we've definitely had a fry hatch because there's a lot of little bait showing up here and there. So, you know, that's a good sign for hopefully, you know, some stuff that can keep us busy in July and August as we get into the fall run there.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's a good time to get out there for sure. And just this week's going to be all about dodging that east wind, but hopefully that high pressure keeps away any low pressure tropical systems and we get lucky.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I mean, it's just going to be what, at least from what I'm seeing, and I didn't catch your whole weather report. So, you know, anytime you get, you know, 20 to 25 mile an hour winds, and the east is good, because there's, you know, a lot of fish on the beach, but a lot of it has to do with what your customers or what you're willing to put up with. You know, part of the problem we have here is that we know that there's good days coming.
Yeah, exactly.
So sometimes it's tough to get out there and beat yourself up and, you know, try to work with the wind, and it eliminates a lot of spots and things that just don't work so well. And, it can dirty up some spots, you know, where the water gets dirty and the fish will move. So, you know, you just got to pick and choose your days, and, you know, good Lord willing, we'll be able to get a few days in here and catch a few fish and put some smile on some faces.
That's all it's about, right?
That's what we do, man. That's how Hubbard's becomes #1 in the world, baby. Best charter business on the planet.
We're going for it. We're going for it.
Yes, sir. Good stuff.
Yes, sir. Well, we appreciate it, Captain Mike. Thanks for your time tonight, and look forward to next weekend.
We will be there, my brother. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there.
All right, my friend. Happy Father's Day.
All right, buddy. Be good. Back at you.
See you, man.
See you, buddy.
Always a pleasure to hear from our friend Captain Mike. Apologize for those audio issues. Don't know what's going on there, but we'll get it fixed for next week. And definitely excited to get into the rest of the weather. We talked a little bit about the wind finder side of things. I know a lot of people are concerned about the 39-hour trip coming up, not tomorrow, but Tuesday. We sent the 39-hour trip today. We're going to pop back to hubbardsmarina.com. Again, under fishing trips, click the weather links. We're going to go down to the 12-hour extreme and 39-hour area. This is the St. Pete offshore buoy. The midweek 39-hour trip that leaves Tuesday is definitely going to have a little bit of a bumpier condition. They're showing 6.5, almost 7 foot, which is a little difficult, but this could change, definitely could possible change, so we're going to keep an eye on it through the night tonight and into tomorrow morning, hoping for a little bit of a decrease. Again, this is the St. Pete offshore buoy. If you pop on over to the actual map, there's another buoy I like to look at too. which is this one, the 106 nautical mile buoy. And we like to look at, what in the world is that? Give me a forecast. So this one, it's showing same thing. Actually, it's showing 7 foot and a little bit more. So this will be the interesting thing. How does this change overnight? Does it stay the same? Does it get better? Does it get worse? And that's going to answer our question for this Tuesday 39-hour trip that leaves not tomorrow, but the day after. So we'll be making that call early tomorrow. But popping on over to the Hubbard's Marina Weather Links page and clicking our ultimate storm forecast page, spaghettymodels.com. Our friend over at Mike's weather page puts this website on. On the top left, there's some model options to choose from. It takes you over to Tropical Tidbits. And this is where we monitor some tropical stuff, right? And this is the big question here. This high pressure, this big red blob is what's causing all that wind Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So this red blob is causing all that wind Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But you can tell this little low pressure right here starts to scoot across the bottom of that high pressure. And it kind of gets broken down by that high pressure. So this will be a big question, is where does this red blob extend? Where does it move to? If it stays in our area, we've got windy east wind conditions, but it kind of keeps us safe from this low pressure development, and it kind of breaks that thing down as it comes our way Friday, and we have a nice weekend basically. But if this high pressure, this big red blob, gets a little weaker or it slides north, then we're going to get a little less wind this week. But then the potential for this tropical system later in the week into the early weekend will become a bigger concern. So there is a lot of weather modeling, forecasting, predicting going on, and you know how that goes. It is ultimately an educated guess. So we will have to watch this closely. Let's look at the precipitation. So this is a cool map that I like to use too. So you can see that big white area, that's the high pressure. The high pressure generally is less moist, and you can see as that low gets into that area of high pressure, it just, all the moisture gets sapped out of it. It gets sheared apart. Really keeps the moisture down in our area. So overall through the week, looks like it's just going to be breezy and dry. So will be interesting to see how that high pressure plays out. Will that hold in place and keep a stronger east wind through the week and make that low, that tropical low, less of a danger for our area? Or will it break down a little bit, get a little weaker, slide a little bit north, and open the door to that tropical system? So the good and the bad of the weather, that's what we're watching out for, and that's what we're keeping an eye on. Want to make sure we give a shout out to some of those sending stars on Facebook. We had James McCullum with the big 500 stars, Jason Bendus, Craig Robinson, Richard Harcourt, Larry White, Ed Mack, Nick Nieves with another big 1,200, Noah Smith with a big 100. Appreciate you, buddy. So far, Nick Nieves and, let's see here, Lance Hall are tied for first place there, guys. Also, want to make sure we get into a little bit of your questions, right? So we've talked about the weather. We've talked about what's going on now. We've shown you photos of what we've been catching. Now it's time to get into your questions. So hopefully you guys have some questions for us. And if you do, you text them in to the phone number on the screen. That's how you enter your question to be answered live during the show. All right. First question, what is your favorite conventional reel for a 10-hour trip? I like, on a 10-hour trip, fishing with a spinning reel. or a conventional reel. Our 5 and 10 hour trips are the only 2 trips that I might be using a spinning reel. Generally 100 foot or less, spinning reels are pretty good options for bottom fishing, for those hogfish and for those finicky mangrove snapper. A little lighter tackle, a little bit more of a stealthy approach, and especially fishing live shrimp, it helps to have that spinning rod. But beyond 100 foot of water, put the spinning rods away and fish exclusively conventional reels. But even on a 10-hour trip in less than 100 foot of water, I would fish a conventional reel if the bite's going really, really well and I want to get those fish up quickly and get them into the boat and start catching more fish. Then I'm going to be opting for that conventional reel. And generally, I like my Daiwa reels. I fish a Saltist 2-speed, which unfortunately they don't make anymore, but I really like that Saltist 2-speed. Also, great option is the Saltiga, which is what I fish generally nowadays, is the Saltiga. We've got a 35, we've got a 40, they make a 45, a 50, we've got a 60, so there's a bunch of different size Saltiga 2-speed reels that work really well as well. That's what I prefer personally. So I fish a Daiwa Saltiga spinning reel and I fish a Daiwa Saltiga conventional reel as well. On the 39 and 44-hour trips, if the crew cleans the fish for me, do you have a service that will vacuum pack and freeze the fish for me so it can be transported back home in a cooler? Yes, down at Don's Dock, our seafood market on the boardwalk, we do offer to vacuum seal and we help freeze guests' fish. They do offer to ship fish, but we try to talk guests out of it. It's like $200 to ship fish. Pretty much anywhere, unless you're going to like Georgia, then it might be like $150, but shipping is crazy expensive. Then we have to build you a shipping box, which takes a lot of material, and that costs money. So you're looking a lot of times $300, $400 to get fish shipped. So we try to talk guests out of it. It's just an added severe expense that you don't really need. We can get you a little TSA carry-on box, and that costs a little bit of money, and it costs a little bit of money to vacuum seal fish, but it's not bad, not terrible, and much more affordable than trying to pack and then ship fish. So if you're going to drive, let us pack them in freezer bags and seal them up nice and build you a little shipping box with some nice styrofoam insulation, and we'll freeze the fish, we'll pack it all up nice, and then you can come pick it up and drive it home. It makes it real easy, and it stays nice. Now, with that, let's answer some more of these questions. What else we got here? Next question, you said descending device and not vent. Can you show a descending device? Y'all used to vent. Do you not do that anymore? We primarily vent fish. Almost all the time we're going to be venting fish, but there are the options to use a descending device. A descending device is a great option, especially for those folks who are maybe fishing on their own, who don't have super experienced captains and crew who are going to show you how to properly vent a fish. A venting tool in the hands of an expert angler, when done quickly, effectively, in the right spot, in the right way, is as equally as efficient as a descending device. But if you don't know exactly what you're doing, if you don't know exactly where to poke that fish, how to poke that fish, how to use a venting tool, it is definitely more effective to use a descending device. Also, if you are maybe not as confident, you don't know what you're doing, plus a venting device is going to add another hole to the fish too. So a venting tool is a little bit more tricky to use. It takes a little bit more of an experienced hand to use, whereas a descending device, really easy. You clip it on the mouth of the fish. It's like using a Boca grip. Everybody knows how to do that. Clip it on the mouth of the fish, send it down, it auto releases. Don't buy a descending device. Get yourself a free one at returnemright.org. So the word return, EM, and then the word right.org. Return EM right. Return 'em right is the full thing, how you say it. But returnemright.org is going to have a little bit of a course. It's like a 10-15 minute course. You finish the course, it tells you about venting, it tells you about descending, it has some cool videos, some educational stuff. You finish that 10-15 minute course, it's totally free. You enter your information, your shipping address, and they'll ship you about $100 in absolutely free stuff. You can then see a descending device in first person. They send you a rigged descending device with a 3-pound weight, and they send you a Shelton fish descender as well. So a sequelizer rigged up to a 3-pound weight, and they also send you that Shelton fish descender as well. Josh has a picture pulled up here. That is a sequelizer or descending device on the right-hand side, and then a Shelton fish descender on the other side, rigged up, ready to rock and roll. So really, really easy to use, simplified, and definitely check out returnemright.org for more information on that. And a venting tool is definitely what we use primarily, but like, for example, if we caught a big old gag grouper, they're generally going to be thrown on a descending device when and where possible, because it's difficult to get those bigger gag grouper, those bigger red snapper, those bigger red grouper down to bottom. They fight really hard, they get really tired out, they get really full with gas, and it's definitely a little bit trickier to get those fish to bottom. So that's when we use the descending devices a lot more frequently. So next question, what will the 39-hour trips target August, September, and October? So our trips target the same fish year-round, but we start to adjust our targeted species based on what's open, right? So we mention it every week, the seasons, and I'll mention it again really quickly. For us, red snapper season is June 1st through August 27th. Gag grouper will be open September 1st for about 1, 2, or maybe 3 weeks. We'll find out by the end of June. Red grouper are open January 1st through the end of day June 30th. Amberjack are open May, September, and October. Then triggerfish are open all year except for June and July. All the other species are open all year. So mangrove snapper, yellowtail, vermilion, porgies, almacos, all those other species we catch, scamp grouper, all open all year. So for example, in August, triggerfish are open. We've got plenty of scamp grouper, mangroves, yellowtails, vermilions. We'll have red snapper for most of August. September and October, we'll have amberjack adding to it. For the first part of September, we'll have gags. There's just so many different species to catch, so lots of options for you for sure. What is the hot bait on 39-hour trips? Big bait is big fish, right? So definitely seeing a lot of the dead bait working really well for the red snapper. Red snapper are the dumbest, easiest fish to catch that swim in the Gulf of Mexico. If you're deep enough, if you're on those fish, you could drop down a banana, a fried chicken wing, a spoon, a knife, a wrench, a chicken bone, a mackerel, a bonita, a mullet, a catfish. It doesn't matter. If it has a hook in it and it's a little shiny or a little smelly, you'll catch a red snapper. They are extremely aggressive, super easy to catch. Anybody can do it. So red snapper is kind of silly. But other species like red grouper, we've seen them kind of hone into the dead bait a little bit better. We're catching a few nice red grouper on live bait, but a lot of times we're seeing some of those live baits starting to get targeted by those gag groupers. So the dead bait help to try to avoid some of the gag grouper for sure. But we're definitely seeing a lot of the big red grouper on strips of bonita, whole squid, strips of squid, big pinfish, big pigfish, lizard fish are a great option too. We're seeing a lot of the scamp grouper on the pinfish, big mangroves on the pinfish, so some great options. And I was joking about the banana, guys, but you can catch red snapper on banana. But yeah, no bananas are allowed on the boat. But there's plenty of videos on the internet of people catching red snapper on bananas because they are that stupid. Red snapper, that is, not the people making those videos. But I can't speak for that, I guess. Do trolling lures also need to have non-stainless hooks? So the rule in federal waters in the Gulf of Mexico is when fishing with natural bait for bottom reef species, you must use a non-stainless inline circle hook. So non-offset, non-stainless circle hook when using natural bait for bottom reef species. So if you're using live bait, dead bait on the bottom for reef fish, you got to use a non-stainless, non-offset circle hook. If you're using a jig, if you're using a different option like that, then it doesn't have to be a trolling lure, a jig, something like that. It doesn't have to be a circle hook. And then you have other options too. It doesn't have to be non-stainless. Generally, you're not going to pull a hook off the back of a jig unless you're using a Nomad, which apparently happens a lot. Wondering what is the best reel for an amberjack fishing the 39-hour trip in October. I always recommend to people, we have a Shimano TLD 50 2-speed in our office. It's a huge reel. It works really well for trolling, and when you're not trolling with it, you could drop it down for big gags and big amberjack. If you spool that up with 80-pound mono, you'll be able to troll well with it. You'll also be able to use it for amberjack, throw a 100-pound leader on it, maybe a 120-pound leader on it. You're fishing for gags. So that Shimano TLD 50 2-speed that we have in our shop, it's $399. If you're on a trip with us, you get 10% off, so it's like $350. It's not bad at all, and it works really, really well. Got my birthday trip coming up on Friday. How's the 5-hour looking? It looks good. Friday's weather is definitely looking better, and definitely plenty of opportunities. The afternoon trips are better. Tomorrow, for example, has 65 in the morning. It's completely sold out, and only 20 in the afternoon. So everybody thinks the morning is the best, just like everybody thinks red snapper are the best, and everybody thinks the back of the boat is the best. Seemingly cannot prove them wrong, no matter how many shows we do and how many times we say it. Red snapper is not the only fish in the Gulf of Mexico. The back of the boat is not the best place to fish, and the morning half day is not the best fishing trip of the day. The afternoon is better. There's less people. There's still plenty of great fishing in the afternoon. You can catch fish on the bow of the boat. Trust me, it does work. The stern is not the best place to fish. Also, on top of that, there's plenty of other times a year to fish besides red snapper season, but I digress. Is the rental rod available on the 39-hour trip? Yes, we rent rods and reels, and it comes with all the tackle you need for the entire trip. If you don't rent a rod and reel, you can bring your own rod and reel, but you gotta bring your own tackle for sure. Let's see. What is the best bait or technique to catch a scamp? I would be fishing for mangrove snapper and maybe drop down a small to medium pinfish, and you're going to get a good chance at those scamp. 60-pound fluorocarbon, 50-pound fluorocarbon, maybe 40-pound fluorocarbon, and smaller hooks, more natural setup, you're going to get those scamps. You do sometimes get scamp on the gag grouper type tackle, that 80-pound, 100-pound, especially if we're fishing deeper. When we're fishing 160 to 200 foot, you can see scamp on heavier tackle too. But if you're fishing inside 160 foot, generally you're catching scamp on lighter tackle on average. That's funny. Andy Pullen said, "You have your superstitions, we have ours." That's true. Everybody has their own opinion. So my opinion is the afternoon is better. There's less people on it, but I cannot convince people. I mean, literally today I had a conversation back and forth with someone from, like, I think they said they were from Indiana or something, and they were like, "Oh, the fish are always biting best in the morning. I got to go in the morning." I was like, "Well, sir, there's 2 spots left on the morning, so you can go out on a full trip tomorrow morning, or you can go out in the afternoon." At the time, we only had 15 people. So go out with 15 people on a 65-foot boat, or go out with 65 people on a 65-foot boat. Don't you think the afternoon would be better? "Oh, fish only bite in the morning," he said. I was like, "All right, man, I'll book you a morning trip." So it's comical. You never know. But everybody does have their own opinion, so I get it. And the customer is always right. Especially at Hubbard's Marina. Is the night bite still good, or is the night bite still good a day or two after the full moon? Generally, you're going to see a really good night bite a day or two before the full moon, and then a day or two after the full moon, right around the full moon, a lot of times right on it. They might be a little bit full already, but you never know. Moon phase is only one of like 30 variables. If it's cloudy, then all of a sudden your moon doesn't matter. All of a sudden the moon's covered up by clouds at night. Doesn't really have an effect on nighttime fishing. If it's really murky water, that's the same as being cloudy. All of a sudden, the cloud has very little, or the moon has very little effect on the night bite. How deep are you? Does the water get? Is it too deep where that moonlight doesn't penetrate to the bottom? Is it an area where the current is maybe not running as much? Then all of a sudden the full moon is offset. Is the salinity level different? Are there bathymetric differences? Is there a thermocline? There's just so many variables. People get so hung up on the moon phase. Yes, the moon phase has a part to play, and yes, you can generally see some trends around the moon phase, but it's not a science, and the moon phase is only one of so many variables. So I would encourage you highly not to get too wrapped around the axle thinking about the moon phase, because it is fishing, not catching, and there's so many different variables that go into it. We gave away the swag pack. Let's go ahead and give away our 5-hour half day for 2 guests. 5-hour half day for 2 guests is next. Lucky winner of that is Amy Catherine. Congratulations, Amy. You won our 5-hour half day trip for 2 guests. Remember, you got 5 minutes or less to text us your full home address to claim that free trip, Amy, and we'll mail it out to you. So 5 minutes or less. All right, next question. I was told braided line is not the best choice for boats with multiple fishermen. I would say braided line is not the best choice in general. If you're fishing on the bottom with dead bait and you've got a good, nice rod and reel, you don't need braided line. If you're fishing 300 or 400 foot of water, braided line becomes a little bit more important, but we're not fishing that deep, right? Even on our 39 or 44-hour trips, we're maybe fishing 200 foot, maybe get up to 250 foot. So braided line is not important. If you're not a super experienced fisherman, stick to mono. Even if you're a super experienced fisherman, you don't need braided line. A braided line then means you have to do those top shots. It means you have to learn these line-to-line knots. It means you have to use a special rod that's going to have special guides. Everything gets way more technical and way more difficult. Sticking to mono makes life a lot easier. Now, if you don't have the money for these high-end rods, braided line does help you to feel the bite a little bit better. But if you're investing $250, $300, $350 in your rod, you don't need braided line. You're going to be able to feel the bite just fine with monofilament. Plus, monofilament technology has advanced so much, it works really well as well. Honestly, when I go to respool my rods, I'm going to be going back to mono because I like casting out really far, and it's just so easy to do with monofilament. You don't have to worry about that line-to-line knot. Life is just easy, simple. You can hand your rod off to someone. You're not worried about them getting the reel all messed up. If you got braided line, things can happen. You could really hurt yourself pretty quickly with braided line. So it's definitely a little bit more tricky. On top of that, you got to have a top shot, which means you have a line-to-line knot, then you add monofilament. You got to add a shock absorber. Braided line is like riding in a vehicle with no shocks. You got to add a shock absorber, a top shot, a leader before the leader, if you will, and that's going to be very technical and difficult to do if you're not a super experienced angler. So I would suggest if you don't know, if you haven't been fishing 3 or 4 dozen times offshore, there's no reason to start with braided line. If you've only fished 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 times offshore, don't go get braided line in your reel. You're just making your life more difficult than it needs to be, for sure. All right, let's see here. What's our next question? Someone just said they switched over to the TikTok stream from Facebook and it looks better. That's awesome. I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm happy to be live on TikTok. It's been a long road to this point, but we made it happen. Thanks, Josh. And thank you for following our TikTok page. When do you fish a knocker rig versus a fish finder rig? I would say 99.9% of people have never fished a true knocker rig. That might be a little bit strong. I would say most people don't fish a true knocker rig. A lot of people will put a 6-ounce weight above their hook and call it a knocker rig. That's not a knocker rig. A knocker rig is meant to fish the water column above the bottom. So a lot of times it means we're fishing a ½ ounce, maybe 1 ounce, maybe 1.5 ounce in 200 foot of water. You know, we're fishing super light lead and a big piece of bait, and that bait is slowly drifting to bottom with that. It's like using a split shot inshore, right? If you use a little small split shot in 20 foot of water at a bridge, your bait's kind of drifting to bottom real slow, and a lot of times you're going to get a bite up off the bottom, right? You're using that split shot because you don't want it on the bottom, you just want it close to the bottom, you want it going to bottom, right? It's the same idea with a knocker rig. You don't want to be on the bottom. You don't want it to rocket to bottom. You want it to slowly go to bottom. And some people go out on our 10-hour trips or half-day trips, and they're using a spinning rod and reel, and they put a 1 ounce or a 2 ounce egg sinker on. And what do? They rocket to bottom. That's not a knocker rig. It's rigged up like a knocker rig. There's no swivel in there. There's just a weight right on top of your hook. It's rigged up like a knocker rig, but it's not a true knocker rig. A true knocker rig, you cast it out, you let that bait separate from that lead, and you're fishing the water column. So it is a different approach. When do you knock a rig? Almost never. Because the only time you're going to knock a rig is when those fish are coming up off the bottom and the bite is extremely slow. So if the bite slows way down and the fish aren't really biting well on the bottom, that's when we drop a knocker rig. So most of the time, you're not going to be knocker rigging, because if the bite slows down that much, we're going to be moving. When my father used to run 39-hour trips, sometimes we'd sit on a spot for a really long time, and sometimes you'd go into these little lulls. The fish would bite really heavy, and then they'd stop. And then you'd be like, all right, when are we going to move? The bite sucks. Fish shut down. And then all of a sudden they'd start biting again. And those fish, they swim around these peaks in a rhythmic fashion. And a lot of times you'll see these pulses, and then it slows down, and then you'll see a pulse, and then it slows down. You'll see a pulse. It's called picking the fish. And some of these more experienced kind of older school captains, these saltier guys, well, you don't leave fish to go find fish. So you sit there and you fish, and you'll pick fish at a spot, and there's no reason to leave fish that are chewing to go find fish, right? So it's just a different style approach of fishing. Most of our captains nowadays, our next generation, our young guns, Captain Will, Captain Joe, Captain Seabass, Captain Frank, Captain Garrett, they're not going to sit on a spot and sit through these rhythmic patterns. Captain James, these guys are going to hit a spot. If it's not happening, they're going to move. So you don't really see that opportunity to knock a rig. Whereas maybe back in the day a little bit, the shark problem wasn't as bad. We didn't get sharked as heavy, so we could sit on a spot and fish it. My dad fished a spot on a 39-hour trip for 8 hours one time. He's very proud of that statistic. It was good. It was great fishing. But you couldn't do that today in the shark populations that we have. You would just be seeing tons of shark action. We'd be sharked out, Sharknado, if you will. So it's definitely changed the game. So to answer your question, when would you knock rig? Probably never, because we're moving around too much and you're not getting that opportunity. If you fish a spot for a really long time, a lot of times that natural chum slick will start to raise those fish, and a lot of times you'll see those fish coming up off the bottom on the bottom machine, and that's when we start to knock a rig and start to catch some really big fish, like Jighead Ed Summerall, may he rest in peace. was one of the greatest, single-handed, greatest ever knocker rig fishermen I've ever seen. I learned a lot about fishing from that man, and he would catch almost always the biggest snapper, and that's what he'd do at the end of a fishing spot. Once we've been sitting there for 30, 45, 60 minutes, an hour and a half, you'd see him put his rod down, put his big rod away. He'd get out this little small conventional reel with this 1/4 ounce jig head, and he'd drop it down with a full thread fin and catch a 12-pound mangrove snapper. And he was the man. He'd caught a ton of fish, and he could get away with that because we used to stay at spots that long, but we just don't do it. That style of fishing has really changed because of the shark problem offshore. Next question. Targeting mangrove snappers, should I throw greenbacks or shrimp? Are you in the Bay? I would assume you're probably in Tampa Bay. If you're in Tampa Bay, either one. If you're near shore, it kind of changes. It depends on where you're fishing, right? So where are you fishing? How deep are you fishing? That kind of thing. So definitely depends. All right. Other questions. But to answer your question, I would probably throw shrimp just because we don't really fish a lot of greenbacks because we don't go net our own bait. When is gag grouper season this year? We talked about that already. Open September 1st. It's going to be open for a week, maybe 2, maybe 3. If you wait to book, it'll be sold out. It's probably already close to sold out. We know it's going to open September 1st. We know it's going to be open for a week, maybe 2, maybe 3. So book those trips now. Been saying it for 3 months. When you're catching keeper triggerfish, are they mostly on the bottom or suspended? Remember, triggerfish are closed June and July. So June and July, no triggerfish can be kept. Only you can keep them every other month of the entire year. It's not June and July. But generally, we're catching them on the bottom because we're fishing on the bottom. The fish that we fish for, fish that we catch, they're bottom fish. They live on the bottom. They eat on the bottom. So we keep our bait on the bottom. All right. My July 6th trip on the flying hub is scaring me. It's like playing Russian roulette with Florida. Yeah, July 6th is a long way off. That's 3 weeks away, so it's impossible to know what the weather's going to do. So I would say hurry up and wait. We'll see what the weather's going to do. But the Flying Hub 2 is a tricky one, right? Because out of any of our trips, the Flying Hub 2 is going to be the most likely to cancel. You want to hear a crazy statistic? So the Gulf of Mexico Fishery Management Council staff reached out to me this past week, and they were asking me how many angler trips that our boats ran, because they had the statistic that they were getting out of the MREP survey, the Marine Recreational Intercept Program survey, and they didn't really feel like these numbers were making sense. So they wanted to check with us at Hubbard's Marina, how many trips do we run, so they could kind of ground truth that data. So it was kind of cool to see them doing that. It was also kind of cool to be a part of the science, and I was kind of interested myself because I know a lot of the numbers, I know a lot of the trips, how many passengers we take, but I don't know how many trips we ran. So long story short, we started to look at how many trips each boat ran in 2023. You know how many trips the Florida fishermen ran in 2023? 368 angler trips were done on the Florida fishermen. The friendly fishermen had 562 angler trips. The hub boat, the hub charter boat ran like 550 angler trips. You know how many the Flying Hub 2 ran? 122. Now, that is a drastic difference. And the reason why is the hub will run multiple trips a day. Sometimes it's running 4 trips a day. It'll run shorter half-day trips. It stays closer to shore. It's less likely to get canceled. They'll do some ash scattering trips, so they're really short 2-hour trips. Sometimes they'll run 6 of those in a day. The friendly fisherman, too, it runs a lot of near-shore half-day trips, so it's less likely to cancel. The Florida fisherman ran 364 trips. It's running 2- and 3-day trips, and then when it's not running 2- or 3-day trips, it's running these little short 5-hour trips. The Flying Hub 2 mostly runs all-day trips, so that's why it doesn't have as much of a chance to run so many trips, but also it's very weather sensitive. If it's over 3 foot, generally you have to cancel. I mean, it's like taking a 35-foot contender or a 40-foot contender out there, right? You don't want to go out there in a super fast center console boat when it's rough. When it's 3 foot on a party boat, that's not bad. When it's 3 foot and you're going 40 miles an hour in a 40-foot boat, that's rough. And you can't go 40 miles an hour. The boat won't perform. Then all of a sudden you're not getting as far. You're not going as fast. It defeats the whole purpose of going out in that boat. So that's the problem, is the Flying Hub 2 is more weather sensitive because of the speed. And it's a very different boat than anything else we offer at Hubbard's Marina. So it's very weather sensitive. And we're very weather sensitive on that boat because we don't want to send a guest out. If you're paying money to go really far, really fast, and we know the weather's not going to allow us to go really far, really fast, why would we ethically offer you that experience, right? We want to try to provide you the best possible experience. We want to keep you safe. We want to have you the best opportunity to have a good time. If we feel we can't keep you safe, if we feel we can't provide you the product that we advertised, we're forced to cancel, right? So it makes it very difficult. So the 39-hour trip can go out there when they're calling 5.5, 6 foot seas, like the 39-hour trip went today. It's going to be 6 foot by the time that boat comes back. It's going to be rough. But on the Florida Fisherman, a 6 foot sea is not bad. On the Flying Hub 2, a 6 foot sea is unsafe and not okay. So very different boats, very different experience, and that's why. All right, so we gave away our swag pack. We gave away our 5-hour half day for 2. It's time for our 10-hour all day for 2 guests. We're going to answer 1 or 2 more questions, then we're going to wrap this up, all right? So 10-hour all day for 1 lucky winner, 2 guests. Winner is Billy Murray from Eustis, Florida. Congratulations, Billy, on that lucky win. You got 5 minutes or less to claim your free trip by texting us your full home address. All right. Do you use the double hook system or knocker rig for red snapper? No. Red snapper are the most aggressive, dumbest fish in the Gulf of Mexico. So you could use no hooks in a lasso and still catch some red snapper. Generally, a single hook rig is really all you need for red snapper. But if I'm using dead bait, generally I'm going to use a double hook rig. I would never, ever, ever use a knocker rig for red snapper because, again, they're super dumb. They don't care. So I'm going to put a big sinker, like a 6-8 ounce sinker on, and a big leader, 80, 100-pound leader, because they're dumb. They'll bite 700-pound leader. It does not matter. Also, a really big hook because they're dumb. And a really big bait because, again, they're dumb. And the reason why is you don't want to catch that small red snapper, right? You want to go out there. You're only allowed 1 or 2 you're only allowed 2 red snapper on a day trip. You're only allowed 4 red snapper on a 39-hour trip or a 44-hour trip. A 12-hour extreme, you're only allowed 2. So you want to catch big ones, right? In order to catch big ones, avoid the smaller ones. Use big baits. Use a big strip of bonita. Use a big piece of porgy. Use a big white grunt. Use a really big bait. 6, 8, 10-inch bait is going to avoid you catching that 16-inch red snapper. You want to catch that 15, 20-pound red snapper. That's huge. You got to use a big bait and big hook. And in order to use a big bait, you need a big hook. And then big leader helps. So that way you can fight that fish. So in order to catch a red snapper, use a single or double hook. It doesn't matter. Just make sure they're really big. Make sure your leader's really heavy. Make sure your weight's really heavy. And drop the biggest possible bait down there. That way you're going to avoid smaller red snapper. And you're going to hopefully catch a really big one and have a good time doing it. So let's see here. About 6 months ago, I started watching your show and joined the Salt Strong community at the same time. The amount of fish I am now catching compared to what I was catching before is night and day. I am now catching what I'm targeting close to every time I go out. That is awesome. That is a true success story right there. That warms my heart. I am very proud. And I'm being a little facetious, but also very serious. That's really cool. It's what it's all about. That's what we're here to do. The Salt Strong community is really, really great too. So check it out. saltstrong.com/Hubbard gives you that secret entrance to a special deal. Again, saltstrong.com/Hubbard. You're going to get a Salt Strong membership and all our courses that we filmed with Salt Strong absolutely free too. So check out the special, saltstrong.com/Hubbard, to get that special deal. But thank you for the kind words. I think it was Darian who said that. All right, next question. Trying to get my 4 kids more excited about fishing. How old are your kids? I'll tell you what I do with my kids. I've tried multiple different ways. Since my son was a year old, really before he was even a year old, I had a fishing pole in his hand. And I was fishing with him on the dock. And I've tried a little bit bigger hooks with a little bit bigger shrimp, trying to catch a nice mangrove snapper. I tried fishing for those little snook. I've tried sheep's head fishing with them. I've tried multiple different things. And nothing gets your kid more pumped than catching more than 1 fish at a time. So if you catch 2 fish at a time, he's pumped. You catch 3 fish at a time, he's super pumped. So my daughter is now 2.5. My son's 4.5. And through 4 years of trials, tribulations, and learning, I have now perfected the art of dock and seawall fishing with my young children and keeping them hooked. And the art is go to the tackle shop and get you a sabiki rig. And not just any sabiki rig. There are specific sabiki rigs. Bigger ones are better. I use like a size 8. They even have like size 6s, and the smaller the size means the bigger the hook, the bigger the sabiki. A size 8 seems to be a good size, but even 6 is pretty good too. It's a little bit bigger of a hook, and it's heavier line, like 14-pound test. So I put a little 1-ounce egg sinker on there, and because they're bigger hooks, heavier line, there's only 4 of them. If you get the really small ones, like the size 14 or the size 16, there'll be like 6 hooks in there. Too many hooks for kids. Sometimes I'll even take the sabiki, and if there's 4, I'll cut one off, and so there's only 3. Less hooks, less dangerous, right? So using a larger sabiki, and then if you need to, you might need to tip it with a little bit of shrimp or squid. I'm fishing the dock or seawall in John's Pass generally, so generally I don't even have to tip it. Just cast it out there and kind of you can even let your kid do it. My son's to a point now where he can cast it out, he can reel it in, and he can hook the fish himself. He just needs help unhooking them. So it definitely works really, really well. The sabiki is the go-to for the kids for sure. That would be my suggestion. Size 8 sabiki, 1-ounce egg sinker. Get a rod as well. I went and got a rod and reel from Gator Gyms, like a trout rod. You can get something really light. If you hook a pinfish on this rod, it bends like you've got a 20-pound red snapper. So get you a light, sensitive rod, something that your kid is going to be able to hold. A 1000 series spinning reel. I got a little Daiwa Procyon 1000 and a trout rod. When I say a trout rod, it's like a river trout rod. So it's super light, super whippy, super small reel. My 2.5-year-old daughter can hold it easily. And dude, you catch 3 or 4 pinfish on it, or you catch an 8-inch mangrove on it, or we've been catching some 10, 12-inch lane snapper on them, and they have a blast. Even myself. Sometimes we hook a little spadefish on it, and you hook a spadefish on a rod like that, you got your hands full for sure. So it's fun. What length top shot should I use around the bridges? It depends on what you're targeting, but generally, if I'm fishing braided line on a spinning reel, throwing a bait around the bridge, I'm going to be using like a 3-foot, maybe 4-foot leader. Something that's long enough to get that braided line away from my hook or my lure, but also something short enough to where I'm going to be able to cast really easily. That's the trick. What's your preferred fishing line, knot for fishing line? I like a reverse Albright for line to line and a nail knot when I'm tying swivels or single hook rigs, and a double snell if I'm tying dead bait. But right on our website, if you go to Fishing Trips and under Fishing Trips, scroll down to fishing video links, hit fishing tips and tricks, and that's going to bring you to our fishing tips and tricks page. And it's going to show you right here under rigging tips how to tie a nail knot, how to tie a uni knot. There's a bunch of different options. How to tie a kingfish rig. There's how to tie a PR bobbin knot. There's so many. How to tie a double snell knot, the FG knot. There is a ton of knot tying videos. The loop knot is definitely a good one too if you're tying artificial lures. So an artificial lure, I use a loop knot. If I'm tying on a single hook rig or a swivel, I'm using a nail knot. If I'm tying on a leader, a line-to-line knot, generally I like a reverse Albright, but FG knot is probably the best. But I've always used the Albright. I think we got time for one more, maybe, if it's a quick one. What?
We got him.
We got him?
This is the only one.
All right, well, we got most of our questions in there. Don't forget, coming up, we've got Final Friday. You want a chance to, or actually, there's not a chance. Do you like free food? Do you like free beer? Free beer and free food and live music. Great time every Final Friday of every month. This Final Friday is June 28th. And we're going to be having a grand time at Hubbard's Marina. Hopefully you can join us. Live music throughout the pass. There's pub crawls. It's a great time. So join us Final Friday. We give away free stuff in the shop. We have fishing trip giveaways. We give away a shelling trip. We give away free beer. We give away free food. There's a crawfish boil. This is an awesome time to come out and join us. So 6 to 9 p.m. every last Friday of every month inside Johns Pass. It's a Johns Pass wide event. Also, we've got Bartow Ford coming up July 30th. Captain Mike Anderson and Eric Bachnick from Mirror Lure is going to be out there at Bartow Ford. They're going to have free Bull Bay rods to give away, free Engel coolers to give away, free real animal swag pack stuff to give away too. So definitely a great event. There's free food from Silver Ring Cafe as well. So come out and join us at Bartow Ford July 30th. It is a great time. And that event is going to be a can't miss with Eric Bachnick from Mirror Lure for sure. All right, so with that, we talked about pretty much everything. We went through our announcements. Don't forget to vote. We got Tampa Bay Times voting for Best of the Bay open now. We're nominated for 3 categories: Best Local Gift Shop, Best Local Tourist Attraction, and Best Fishing Charter Boat. It is right on our website. There's a pop-up that'll pop up. It's also posted to our social media pages as well. So go to hubbardsmarina.com, get that pop-up, and make sure you click here to vote. It'll kind of walk you through how to vote as well. So check it out. Don't forget to vote daily every day between now and July 30th. So you got about 2 weeks to vote daily. Help us to win Best Local Fishing Charter, Best Local Tourist Attraction, and Best Local Gift Shop as well. With that, let's see who won our 39-hour trip for one lucky winner. 39-hour trip for one lucky winner goes to, drum roll please, $500 value goes to Gary Camage from Michigan. Congratulations, Gary. Congrats to all of you for watching and being a part of our Hubbard's Marina family. Thank you all. Remember, if we end the show tonight and overnight you get some kind of weird spammy message from something that looks like Hubbard's Marina that tells you to click here and give your credit card information, it is not us. We will not message you. We will not comment to you and tell you that you won, click here. That is spam. It probably will happen from time to time. People love to target these live videos on Facebook. Facebook has a lot of spam out there. So if someone tells you to click something and then asks for a credit card, don't be don't fall for that one. We only do live giveaways one way. You can only win stuff one way. And that's how we just showed you. Your name appears on the screen. You got 5 minutes to claim it. So don't be fooled. Don't be tricked. And make sure you're only responding to Hubbard's Marina with that blue check. Josh is illustrating it here for us. Right on the top of our page, you'll see our logo. You'll see Hubbard's Marina, and you'll see the blue check. People can make up a fake page. The last one was called Selection Winner and used our logo photo, which anybody can take our logo photo and make a fake Facebook page and name it whatever they want, and then use that to comment and say, hey, you won, click here, give us your credit card information. And people are falling for it. Don't fall for the spam, guys. Don't fall for it. You're smarter than that. We know this. Y'all have a good night. Tight lines. We'll see you next week for another episode. Every Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. Thanks for watching. And don't be a red snapper. That's a great one, Amy. I like that. I'm going to have to steal that. That's a t-shirt, Josh.
I was just thinking that.
Don't be a red snapper.
I was just thinking that.
That's a t-shirt and a half. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Forgot to say, there is a supporter show going on at probably just after 9 o'clock. So hop on over to the supporters page if you're a supporter. We'll start that supporters after show shortly. Sorry about that, y'all. Now we're out.